Hello, everyone. That's not good. Okay.
Just keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael True, and this is Kenya Ross, and this is our new podcast here brought to you by the Blanchard Institute. On the show, we are planning to kind of have those difficult conversations that sometimes get avoided, and we are not going to be scared to go where we need to go and have these difficult conversations. So I'll let Kenya speak a little bit about what she is looking forward to getting out of this.
Thank you, Mike. I also don't want to forget Erica Baskin, who is the tech behind all of this. She's going to make us look good and sound good, because of course me and Mike will struggle in that area. So yeah, like Mike said, we are not going to shy away from having those difficult conversations. We value perspective, transparency, and honesty, and we want to go into this with different perspectives, his minds and our viewers and listeners, because we definitely want to hear feedback. We definitely want you guys to chime in. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear us talk about? What are those questions you have that you may not have gotten answered in the past? Those difficult conversations, and bring those to us. We're looking for topics to discuss, topics to share, and things to talk about. I think we're ready to challenge you and have those difficult conversations. What do you think, Mike?
Absolutely. Any type of guests that you would like to see too, we are definitely open to having anybody come on and interview or just kind of share their piece. Again, just touch on the perspective. You know, we want to, whether it's gender, race, sex, orientation, whatever it is, we don't want to kind of leave anybody out. We've all got a unique perspective to share. And I think especially in today's day and age, one of the big things is that there's so much division between people, no matter what the category you want to talk about is. But in the end of the day, I think most of us can realize that we have more in common than we do that we have differences. Especially working in the industry that we work in, which is obviously substance use and mental health disorders. We hear a lot of there's a phrase in AA, right? Like terminal uniqueness. And so it's people come in and it's, well, I'm not like them. I'm not as, and everybody always feels as though that what they're struggling with is, or what they deal with is unique to them and them only. And the more you talk about things, the more you kind of realize that there are a lot of people in similar situations who have gone through similar things or have dealt with similar things and have came out the other side. And I think, especially, bridging that gap between races and genders and orientations and things like that can hopefully move things a little forward in our communities rather than further dividing us like we see too much of.
And the one thing we want to pride ourselves on is when we have these difficult conversations, like Mike said, when working at the Blanchard Institute and, learning to lead with compassion. And in having these difficult conversations, realizing like we have more in common than we realize. When we talk about, moving in the realm of mental health and substance abuse and the isms that we all face on a daily basis in society and the things that we are dealing with in our own homes and seeking, treatment for mental health and seeking treatment for, medical issues and substance use disorders, moving with compassion, moving with kindness. And the one thing in those areas is learning to have compassion. And compassion allows us to understand that even though we are different, we have more in common than we know. And opening transparency and having those dialogues and having those conversations is where we have to begin. And that's the main thing that I think Mike and I and the Blanchard Institute want to do. We want to move into having those difficult conversations and not shying away from them. And it doesn't always have to be stuffy or uptight. Yeah. We can find humor in the things that bring us together, that make us different. Yep. One thing, being able to laugh at yourself. Being able to, enjoy the differences that you have. We don't always find differences to be a bad thing. Be light in life, have fun in life. And I think even having conversations where you disagree, agreeing to disagree, or you may find having a conversation with someone like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I never looked at it from that perspective. I think that's the key thing in meeting different people and having dialogues and interaction and stepping out of your comfort zone and just allowing yourself to lean into what's different. That's going to be the important thing, and moving throughout life and learning to step out there and allowing yourself to soar and exploring different things. And you may learn something that you never even had the opportunity to experience. And that's kind of the perspective we want to come from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially with, you kind of touched on it a second ago, when it comes to a lot of times with, again, especially nowadays, I know it's a big time of year for politics and but even with race and things like that, I feel like a lot of times we got to come from a place of knowing that the person that you're talking to or having a disagreement with, the opinion that they have and the idea that they have it's not always, we're so quick to assume it's coming from a bad place or it's made in malicious intent. But that's not always the case. And I think if we kind of address and start a conversation coming from the understanding that, whatever that opinion is or whatever that idea is, it's coming because in my heart of hearts, I believe it is going to help the greater good. Then we can kind of at least understand that, hey, okay, at least there's no malicious intent. And then we can kind of go from there and see, are our opinions really that different, or are we, doing what a lot of people do a lot of times, including myself, and are we hearing without listening and seeking to respond before actually listening, taking a beat and taking a second to actually internalize what was said to us and then kind of respond accordingly. I feel like we're always so quick to be on the defensive nowadays, to where we're always trying to protect or defend our stance rather than being open to, what the other side's opinion actually is and what the justification or the reasoning behind that stance actually is. So yeah, I think just coming from starting conversations from an understanding that, we're all fighting towards the same goal. And obviously there's more than two ways to skin a cat kind of thing, where it's like, there's multiple ways to get to the end goal. And if we can all just kind of understand that and be on the same page about that, who knows, that's where, unbiased and partnerships are started. And, maybe my idea and your idea, maybe on their own wouldn't stand a chance, but if we kind of melt them together, maybe that's where the magic happens and that's where, real progress is made. So, yeah.
And you're so right, Mike. And the thing that I think we forget to realize sometimes is that our beliefs are based on our experiences. Mm-hmm. And if you've never experienced something, then you really don't know how to take that. So when you come to the table with individuals, we all have different experiences. You, myself, Erica, we have different experiences. And when we come together, we can only have our judgment, our biases, our beliefs based on our experiences. So it's like, well, Mike, teach me, tell me if your experience was different from mine. I may not understand. I may not know. So my belief or my thought pattern about that specific subject is based on my experience. So when I come to the table, I only know and I only can give my experience. So I think we have to give each other the opportunity to learn, to be teachable, and also teach the other person, well, hey, I know that's your belief, and I know you're coming to the table with that belief system and that experience, but this is what my experience has taught me. Mm-hmm. This is where my belief system comes from. Yep. And that comes from being open, both parties being open and being able to listen, being able to hear, being able to, say, okay, that's what I believe, but now I'm presented with this information, so maybe I need to take that in and digest that. Maybe my perspective will change, and that's where we have to grow and stretch and be able to say, okay, all right, maybe that is a little different, because we all come from different backgrounds. Yep. We all come from different cultures. We all come from different family systems. So we all have different beliefs we bring to the table. And as we grow in society and we are introduced to different things, it's like with food. When you grow up in your family, you learn you eat what is prepared. I mean, I come from a household where if my grandmother put it on the table, that's what you ate, right? You didn't have a lot of choices. So when I got older And, you know, I became an adult and I got introduced to different food. I was like, I don't quite know what that is, but I'll try it. I think it's the same thing with life. When you experience different things, you don't quite know what it is, but you have to be willing to try it. So your culture and your family teaches you different things, but as you meet other individuals and you encounter different cultures in society and different perspectives, you have to be open to that. And that really starts with conversation, communication, and dialogue.
Did you ever see that movie with Jim Carrey, Yes Man?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So especially early on in my sobriety, that was, and I still talk to families and loved ones today about it, where it's like early on, especially when I was like, you know, refining myself or whatever you want to call it, there wasn't much that I would say no to, obviously in a legal and productive sense. But, you know, when it comes to like re-looking at old interests that I used to have before I went down the different path that I did and started using, you know, old habits that I lost, old sports or hobbies, whatever it was. And so I think being open-minded and being willing to make that leap, even if it's something where, you know, initially it's like, you know, I don't really think I'll like that, but still just, you know, why not just go for it? It's the same thing as I remember growing up. I used to, and I know I've talked to this about it with a few other people before, and I know a lot of people have the similar things where a lot of times in the past, some of the people that I disliked the most initially ended up becoming my closest friends. Like my closest high school buddy, you know, through college and stuff. I remember we met on the school bus on the way home in like 9th grade, and I couldn't stand this guy. And then ended up with, you know, 3 months later, we can't get each other out of each other's house, and I'm calling his mom, and he's calling my mom, you know. So it's, yeah, I mean, I think just being open-minded and willing to make that commitment and make that jump and just, again, you touched on it a second ago, and I struggle with this a lot. You're talking about being open-minded to other opinions. And my wife will tell you, when I have an opinion, I dig in and I stand on it, you know, and most of the time I'm very bad at it. I'm not good at listening to the other side. So I'm kind of challenging myself to be willing and vulnerable in that situation. But, you know, coming from, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. We'll do that often. Just bear with us.
Yeah. I'm a human.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. But no, I think just coming from a place of, that's what I was going to say. There it is. All right, he's back. So being open to being challenged, right? So like, you know, you don't grow without a little discomfort and without a little pain. And so I think from an opinion standpoint and looking at it that way, the way to grow and evolve and change your opinions and your thoughts and your beliefs is to be challenged on them. And so I think, again, opening those lines of communication and looking at it from different perspectives and being willing to really not only listen to them, but acknowledge that, you know, because there are some things, obviously, we've got a lot in common, but the things that we do have different, you know, being open to, well, I haven't ever experienced anything like that before. So I can't always speak onto what you've been through, you know, and I think I've seen it a little bit here lately where, you know, especially as a man, right, we're always kind of taught to that emotion's weak and you know, well, certain emotions are good, and everybody will laugh when I say this because it's right on the head for me. You know, I have anger down pat. I've got happiness down pat. And then I've got just pure contentment or it seems like contentment where I'm just sitting still, you know, not really emoting much. But I think I keep losing my train of thought. Oh man.
Erica's talking to us.
We're vibing now. But yeah, no, so I think, there it is. Okay. So we're back again. Okay. Yeah. So coming from that place where I've, You know, I wouldn't even say it was taught to me by my family or anything like that, but I will, you know, looking back, I will say, you know, dad, grandpa, things like that didn't really show many emotions, but I think one of the best things we can do when we don't have that relatable experience or we don't have any input, you know, is just be willing to sit there with a person through whatever they're dealing with or whatever they're talking about or going through or, you know, because sometimes, and again, as a guy, I deal with this a lot, especially with my wife, where it's like, I want to, like I said a minute ago, I want to respond and I want to fix it and I want to do something or I want to try to make it better. And sometimes that's not what's needed. It's just to sit there and be an ear. We don't always need feedback. Sometimes feedback is good, but sometimes people don't even really want to hear it and they just want to let you know the place that they're coming from. And so I think just having that space for you or me or any potential guests that come on, anybody that asks a question, anything like that, and just knowing that it's a judgment-free zone, and you know we can just sit there and be there while you're going through what you're going through, and you know take the necessary steps if there's anything after that. Yeah,
For sure. I wanted to go back to kind of what you said about that digging in. You know, I have a 16-year-old daughter.
I didn't know that at all.
So if you talk about, I know, right? So if you talk about digging in,
Oh yeah.
this kid, you know, sometimes I'm like, did I create a monster? Because I've always taught her to stand up for herself. You know, stand up for what you believe in, no matter what it is. If you believe in it, stand in it. You know, and she stands in it 10 toes down. So it really made me think about what you said. Like, we were having a debate about something a few weeks ago, and she really was dug in. I mean, she was not budging. And I've always told her, if you believe in it, like, we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Even she's a good kid, but you know, she's, you know, butted heads with teachers at times, because a lot of times they don't know what to do with her, because she will challenge. And then the problem is she's read too many of my psychology books.
Yeah.
And so sometimes teachers are doing lessons and she's like, yeah, that's not right.
Yeah.
And so this is the instance. And I was like, you know, you can't do that. And she was like, well, that wasn't right. And I said, you know, you can't challenge the teacher. And she's like, but she was given wrong information. So she really was dug in. And I had to explain to her, like, it's one thing to dig in, but it's something else to just have your own perspective. And so it just made me think about what you were saying, like, you know, I raised her to do that when you were saying, like, how your family has raised you to, you know, when you have a perspective, you dig in on it and you kind of stand in it. But sometimes you have to be flexible. And you have to be able to see the other person's perspective. So as I was telling her this, I was explaining to her, like, from the teacher's perspective, you are one of 25. You are challenging her. So from her perspective, you're being insubordinate and you're being disrespectful. So sometimes you have to be flexible. And as adults, we have to do that. When you're challenging someone on their perspective, they can kind of see it as like, you don't care about what I think. And I think we have to, you know, be compassionate enough to realize that they may not have the experience to understand where we're coming from. And that's where we have to be flexible enough, empathetic enough, and compassionate enough to say, okay, this isn't them digging in. Or like with you, this isn't Mike digging in. This is Mike saying, just Mike, you know, he hasn't had that experience. Yep. So for me, it's my job as his friend or as his coworker to say, okay, Mike, let me share my experience with you. Yep. That will help you understand where I'm coming from. And then there's a middle ground where I've given you information to ponder on to give you a different perspective. And it helps me possibly see, okay, what I need to do better to help people understand me better. Yep. And I think sometimes we don't always do that middle ground. I just made me think about, you know, my daughter, and she was able to go back to school and have a dialogue with that teacher and explain to the teacher she wasn't attempting to be challenging or insubordinate, but just she had been given this information. Also, she no longer reads my psychology books. But I do encourage people, you know, when you have something that you believe in, to stand in that. And I do also agree with you that, you know, a lot of times men aren't allowed to. And I think that's a great topic for us to dive into as we, you know, go on further with our podcast. I don't want to jump into that right now
it's
because
coming.
that's
It's
a tough one as
yeah.
far as men and emotions.
I got days on that one.
That's a little rough one. I think we might need, you know, have a person to come in and talk about that one, men and emotions. But definitely, I don't think we give men enough space to have those emotions. You know, it's kind of like man up, chin up, chest out.
Yep.
And society doesn't do a good job of letting you guys have those emotions. So just know, Mike, you can cry anytime you feel like you want to on the podcast.
Yeah, it's due. It's due.
Feel free.
If that happens, I'm going to say, cut that. I'm gonna say, can we cut that out?
But I'm going to keep it in.
No, I think I'm kind of excited. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good. I think especially, you know, I was kind of surprised yesterday. You know, we've talked about doing this for a while, and it finally just took a few of us that just, you know, I don't know how other way to put it, but just said, you know what, screw it, let's just do it. And then, you know, now even just with us filming the first time today, you know, even yesterday when they saw us all setting this up, you know, we had 2 or 3 volunteers come out of the woodwork, and it was like people that I would not expect. I was like, what? You want it? And I was like, just let me, like, know what you just signed yourself up for, because it's coming.
Yeah.
You know?
We will interview you.
Yeah. And we will have the hard conversation with
conversations,
you. So just be aware. But no, real quick. So what got you into this space? And actually, I want to back this up too. I want you to know, I remember it was like your first week working here, and we had a difficult case that came in, and we were staffing it, and we needed some guidance from the higher ups, and you were with one of those higher ups, and so I walked in, and I was like, hey, and I laid all the facts out on the table, and was just kind of like, here's this, you know, ASAM criteria, all that, and then I don't remember what you said, I don't remember what exactly ended up happening, but what you did in there, I walked out, and it was Allie, and you went one way, Allie went the other way. I followed Allie, and I stopped her in the hallway, and I was like, I don't know what we have to do. She's here, and she's staying. Like, I don't care what's happening. But that's what I want in a clinician. When I come here, that's what I want. And so I just want you to know that. But also, what brought you here? What got you into clinical work?
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I have to say, the need. And I always tell this story, and I'm going to tell it without crying. I promise you.
Go for it. I got tissues.
Well, you guys know I'm from Connecticut, and so I was about to apply to nursing school, and was working as a temp, and so I got offered a position. And I don't know if I can say the name because I don't know about sponsorship and all that. So I'll err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
I was temping at one place and I got offered a position at another place at a federal qualified health center. And I went there as an admin assistant and I started doing intakes. And I did an intake on a gentleman and it broke my heart. He came in and he was literally I had never seen anyone this color before. He was like ash gray. I didn't even know that was a color that a human could be. And I literally did the intake, and I was almost in tears because I didn't know the impact that addiction could have on a human. I had never been faced with anything like that. I had came from the medical field. And in that moment, I just was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this job. And I went home, and I cried, and I went back the next day, and I had a mentor. And I'm pretty sure I can say his name, David Kennedy. He changed my life. Okay. And I went back and I talked to him, and he was like, you could do this. And so I started doing intakes, and I really was drawn to addiction. I really wanted to make a difference. And the second thing that drove me to clinical, drove me to go back and completely change my major was I started doing groups. I became a case manager and started doing groups. And I had an interaction where I was doing a group, and I asked a group of young women, and I said, if I could tell society anything about you and your addiction, and I promise I'm not going to cry, what would you want me to tell them? And this young lady, probably 100 pounds, soaking wet, said, could you tell them we're not invisible? They can't pass us on the street and act like we're not there. Because we're there. We're here. We're human. You can't act like, and I was floored because they aren't invisible. They're here. It's a disease. And we've done a poor job at treating them. And in that moment, I was sold. And so that's what made me come to clinical. And when I came to Charlotte, I've worked in different positions, and I did some research on the Blanchard Institute, and I did some research on Ward, and I watched some videos, and I was blown away by him. And what really sold me was Allie.
And
Gibby. When I came, Gibby.
And
Well, admissions. Well, no, when I came, Mike and I met everyone, and everyone was a family. Mike definitely.
there it is.
And Casey.
There it is.
So I have to say everyone at the Blanchard Institute, it is really like a family, and we all come together to handle difficult cases. And that case was a difficult case.
You remember what I'm talking about?
I do. I don't know how much I can say about it, but it was definitely a difficult case. A lot of barriers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think they're doing well, though.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And last thing, March 8th and 9th, we have our Family Systems Workshop. Definitely please allow us the honor of coming out and allowing us to engage with you, your family, your loved ones. Also professionals in the community. Please allow us to, share with you on March 8th and 9th. We would love to have you come out to our family workshop.
Yeah, it is free and open to the public, and the professionals get 8 free CEs as well. So
Yes.
it's worth it for more than one reasons. Erica's showing me a flashcard right now, and I can't talk and read at the same time, and I also don't understand what it said. So
I'm going to go for a shoot in the dark and say we're going to do another episode.
okay.
We would definitely be open to suggestions for things to discuss and talk about. But I'm shooting in the dark right now.
I'll just say it out loud.
Come hop in. Come say it in the mic.
Let's say next episode we'll go through why Mike's here.
Oh,
Okay.
our next episode, we will definitely go through why Mike's here.
That works. Buckle up. It'll be a fun ride.
We're going to get this together. And we're going to interview people. So it won't just be me and Mike
Yeah.
fumbling through this as
Yeah.
we progress.
I'm sure we'll get a plethora of people with different perspectives, and it'll be fun and entertaining, and we'll laugh. I'm sure some people will cry. Maybe one day when I start getting to processing my emotions correctly, I will maybe tear up or two. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'll work on helping him process
went
those
well.
emotions. I think it went well.
This went well. I was a little nervous at first, but now now that once I'm used to hearing myself and hearing people through headphones, I think it worked out.
It did.
All right.
Awesome.
Good job.
All right. We will see you guys.
Catch us next time.